So I'm kind of the first generation of refugees who were born in Aida Refugee Camp, or second generation, let's say, because I was born in 1963. Aida Camp was one of the 58 refugee camps which were established after the tragedy that we call Nakba in 1948. And it is one of the 3 refugee camps in Bethlehem area, where actually, according to UN or UNRWA statistics, lives about 7,244 people in Aida Refugee Camp, 2/3 of whom are under 24 years old, on a space of 0.071 kilometers square. So it's a very limited space, and as you have seen, surrounded by this illegal wall of expansion and annexation on the east and north, with 6 towers of snipers, cameras of surveillance, and unfortunately, until these days, incursions by the Israeli occupation arm. And recently, in the beginning of this last month, in fact, there was an incursion in Aida Refugee Camp and at Al-Ruwad Center, where they demolished a lot of things and stole some stuff as well, the soldiers. But also, it was the first to transform the center into a detention interrogation space for the army. And they used my office for the interrogation. So the officer apparently was sitting in your place, and the interrogated people were sitting here, and about 160 people were arrested and put in the camp, in the center, turning one by one interrogated. And 2 were detained afterwards, and some of them were given letters for further interrogation later on in the Gauche Action.
And when did this
Yeah.
when did this happen?
This happened on the night of 2nd to 3rd of December.
This was cast.
Yeah, past December. But it happened before, but not transforming the center into detention interrogation space for about 76 hours at that night. So my family come from a village called Beit Natif on the side of my father, Zakaria on the side of my mother. They are about 17 and 20 kilometers to the southwest of Jerusalem, so they are not far away. But I guess they are further than Seoul or Montreal or wherever in that sense, because a lot of people even cannot go 10 kilometers beyond to Jerusalem, for example, from this camp. I was born in this camp, and there lives, as I said, about 7,244, but coming from 43 different villages among the 534 which were occupied and destroyed by Zionist troops. And these people, in a lot of spaces, and at the entrance of the camp, you have seen this big key, which is a testimony for Palestinian rights to return, and that people do not forget. And even if they want to forget, they are not given any chance to forget. With the continuous occupation that is more disastrous than before. And living a genocide since the 7th of October last year, the year before, in 2023, under the full observance of the international community, despite all the international law and the human rights and so on. It's beyond our understanding and our comprehension and our dreams for our children to grow up in a world of justice and peace and equality. So the camp shifted from tents for about 6 to 7 years into shelters, which were small rooms of about 9 square meters each, temporarily built, because it was supposed to be a temporary situation. But in the late 70s, early 80s, people started improving their situation one way or the other before the shelters started to crack down or became too small for families. So some maintained some of these shelters, some destroyed completely and built anew, some integrated other rooms next to that, and so on. So we can see some of the old shelters, mostly are new ones, because families grew in numbers and people wanted to live in dignity and not to portray an image of misery to it. Even if we are in a refugee camp, we cannot just weep on our misery and want people to have pity on us. And we want to say that the Palestinian cause is not a humanitarian cause, it's a political cause. And we are not poor because we are lazy or don't have resources, but we are put into the poverty by this illegal occupation, which deprives us from the right to circulate freely, to import, to export, to manufacture, even to fall in love and get married with whoever we want, with this segregation between Palestine 48, Jerusalem, Gaza, the West Bank, and the world. And a lot of time people transform it into a humanitarian cause and want to throw some crumbs on the table and say we have helped these poor miserable people, but to remain miserable for the rest of their lives and needy for the rest of their lives. Yes, we need your support, but to help us keep our dignity, to create jobs, to build infrastructures, to help people be productive and not just be passive or negative form of charity that eternally remain under charity actions. Good intentions are good. Helping the poor and miserable by feeding them sometimes is good. But at the end of the day, if it is just that, then it became a permanent case of incapacity to do anything and just waiting for the second handout to come and second crumbs to come. And this is more humiliating than the occupations. So that's why for us, we do what we have to do. Hopefully others will join. Even if they will not join, we will continue. This is our commitment to our children, to your children, and the generations to come, to work so that every day that comes is more beautiful than the day that goes, and instead of just complaining that everything is bad and we'll find somebody to accuse that it's the others who are the problem. And we want our children to grow up and change the world and create miracles and be proud of their achievements and their heritage, and not to walk in their funerals. We are fed up of walking in the funerals for our children. So this is the essence of the philosophy that I am working with. I was born in this camp. I was lucky to get a scholarship to continue my studies in France, where I got my PhD in biological and medical engineering. My heart was also with theater, painting, photography, writing, poetry, and so on. So between 1985 to 1994, I was in France doing my master and PhD, deepening my work as an artist in painting and photography and theater, as an actor, writer, and so on. And in 1994, I came back thinking that Palestine was only waiting for me to save it. So I started working with my biology degree to earn my living, and then volunteering to train theater. And in 1998, with a group of friends, I founded Ar-Ruwad. Ar-Ruwad means the pioneers in Arabic. And we started with a philosophy that I call beautiful resistance. So some agree, some don't agree with that. But for me, every act of resistance against injustice, oppression, occupation is a beautiful act of humanity. And in the case of oppressed people or people under occupation, whether it's armed or non-armed struggle, it is a legitimate right to resist the occupation. Despite the fact that also more than 95% of Palestinians never carried a gun in their life, and they resisted through a lot of creative and not armed ways. Yet this is not mentioned by the world, and they just want you to focus on the images they want to portray, and so on. And the lies that have been seen just in these last 15 months have been beyond any comprehension of any people, but yet they are brought as the facts and not as lies. So on one side, with all the pain, sympathy, and empathy to Jews and their suffering, where is it in the history that we were the cause of their suffering? Where is it in the history that in any Arab or Muslim country there had been concentration camps or pogroms or gas chambers against the Jews or what? Palestine was, is, and will continue to be a land of multiplicity and diversity, a land of inclusion and not exclusion. So even when the genocide or the Holocaust was happening in European countries that come to present themselves as defenders of human rights and values, they are the ones who massacred the Jews and put them in concentration camps. Not in any Arab or Muslim country. So, with this burden on the heritage, when Jewish refugees started coming to Palestine, they were welcomed in the beginning. Because again, this is a land of multiplicity and diversity, a land of inclusion and hospitality and welcoming of the oppressed people. You have been in Palestine for how many days now?
6 days.
6 days. How many communities you have seen in Palestine?
A lot. Hebron,
Hebron.
Jaffa, what else? Jerusalem. We were here last night with Munta Isaac. Also, quite a lot.
How many different ethnicities have you seen?
We met the African community.
The Africans, Armenians, Christians. No, I mean like faith groups.
Jewish, Muslim,
Yeah.
Hindus, Autrichians, French, English, Americans, and so on.
Marxists.
There is more than 40 different ethnicities that are present in Palestine, which testifies that this is a land of inclusion again and hospitality and welcoming even those who are oppressed like the Armenians and became an integral part of the Palestinian communities. And those who came through commerce or wars or whatever and became an integral part of the Palestinian community because, again, this is not exclusive only for Muslims or Christians or Jews or whatever. Through history, Jews, then Christians, then Muslims, then whoever, but before them, many have came and many will come. And so when they present it as God promised them this land, as if God is a real estate agent distributing lands between people, well, if they are talking about Abraham, was Abraham Jewish? Is he Jewish property? Wasn't his first son is Ismail, our as Muslims? But maybe my ancestors were Jewish as well. And then they became Christians, and some became Muslim. And there is, in fact, Abusrour family who are Jewish and who are Christians, and who are Muslims as well, like many other families in that sense. So that's why it's not exclusive. It cannot be exclusive. A European Jew is European. A Muslim European is European. A Christian European is European, as well as a Muslim or a Christian or Jewish Palestinian is Palestinian, and so on. So that's why we cannot talk about exclusivity and historical right on the land. Otherwise, we would go back to the indigenous people in the United States and Canada and so on and chase everybody else away. People rights should be recognized, but the facts on the ground do not grace the rights of people. I don't know how the situation in Asia, but in that sense, there is an inclusion and not excluding. So anyway, with the Ar-Ruwad, when I came back and asked children their hopes and dreams, of course, we are famous of wanting our children to be doctors, engineers, not in crowds for the families in my generation. And then, of course, there are the ones who want to be doctors, engineers, lawyers, teachers, pilots, artists, and so on. But the shocking thing was when children who are even 8 or 10 years old were saying, I want to die. Why do they want to die? Because nobody cares. Because when the Israeli soldiers come in, destroy your house, you are not made accountable for. When they humiliate your parents in front of you or beat your brother or sister, there is no accountability for that. When they put your house upside down, there is no accountability for that. When they imprison children who are even 12, 14 years old, there is no accountability for that. When they kill children and say, oh, it was a mistake, or even do not recognize anything, there is no accountability for that. So how to save lives, how to inspire hope, how to give our children and young people to express themselves in most beautiful, creative, and hopefully non-armed ways. And they can think living for their country and not just be a number on a list of martyrs or handicapped for the rest of their lives or perish in Israel. I thought of theater because of my background, because I believe theater is one of the most amazing and powerful ways to express yourself. Shout as loud as you want. And hopefully this would be a way to build peace within yourselves, to be peace builder in your community and properly in the world. But if I ask you how many people do theater, Anybody? Oh, excellent. So, a seventh of the group is doing theater. So not everybody. Okay. Why are you shy?
I'm not very good at theater.
Well,
What you do is theater,
Well,
poet,
she rap as well.
and she gives readings.
yeah. So not everybody wants to do theater. So integrating dance, singing, music, photography, video, creative writing, supportive education program for children with trauma and learning difficulties, working with kindergartens, with schools, with parents, focusing on mothers and women, because with all respect for men, I believe it's women who change the world more than the men. Yeah, so it was important to help build possibilities for every individual to find a way to build their peace within, to be their peace builder in their community, and remain truthful to their rights, to their values, to their humanity, and not to make compromises on the rights in that sense. And we are the oppressed ones, but we don't weep on our misery and go and blackmail the world for what happened in 1948, like the Zionist mentality trying to blackmail everybody because of what happened in the 40s and so on, and the racism against Jews and so on. And the eternal victimization of themselves as the ones who are the only victims of the world, while there are a lot of victims of the world. And it's not exclusive to have the suffering of the world. Why are the ones now who are exploiting the suffering of the Jews in the past to make oppression and genocide actually in the name of those who were killed in the 40s by the German, Nazis, Europeans, and so on. So that's why I believe in the power of arts in that field, but I cannot pretend that this is the magical wand which will remedy everything. I mean, people have resisted through multiple ways, and there was no one way that was the road for liberation. Those who used armed struggle without also other ways to keep and preserve their identity, their humanity, their integrity as human beings, it could not be successful. And there who was only pacifist and says only non-violence. Even Gandhi said, if you go into non-violence by cowardice, then you better carry a gun, because it's not about being coward to carry on. And there was also an armed struggle movement in India in the same time. It was the same with the Mandela and so on. And oppression has been going on, and until today there is oppression in this world. There is a lot of victims in this world, including in Myanmar and in China and in India and in today all these countries that are suffering, and the misery in Sudan and everywhere and so on. Africa, Latin America, and indigenous people in the United States or in Canada or in Australia and so on. So that's why we cannot be exclusive in saying we are the only one who suffer. If Palestinians say we are the only people who suffer and deny the suffering of others, we lose our humanity in that sense, because we should and we do identify with every suffering in this world, and we don't demand exclusivity in that sense. Unlike the Zionist movement, which was continue to try to, even when they are killing people, they are the only victims and everybody hates them. And sometimes we ask ourselves, why do they hate themselves so much that I won't push everybody to hate? And that's it. So anyway, our programs were designed to help individuals and respond to the needs of the community. And my philosophy was, with or without money, we do it. And that might please some people, but the idea was that we want partnerships. If people want to support us financially or otherwise, help us do what we really need to do and not come to dictate us what we should do and be happy that we are just servants of your orders and demands. Help us do what we really need to do so that we can be proud of what we achieve together and see that we have built possibilities, we have created infrastructures, we have worked so that every day that comes, hopefully, will be more beautiful than the day that goes, and not just keep weeping and waiting for handouts or miracles to happen. Miracles will not happen alone. We need to provoke them to happen. And if people say, it's very complicated, it's hopeless, I say we don't have this luxury of despair. This is not a heritage we leave to our children and the generations. So we do what we have to do. Hopefully others will join. But even if they will not join, we'll continue. With the degradation of the political and economical situation, we could not say just we are a theater center, or artistic center, so we don't need to take care of our community. So the humanitarian part came when it is needed. Even when there is a snow and heavy rain, we have an emergency cell to help the people if their houses are leaking, if they need heaters or whatever that we can provide with the donations that we receive and so on, or contributions from the community. But also when there was COVID, we try to provide for the families, create a space for isolation for those who were touched by COVID and so on, cooking meals, packaging them, delivering them to homes of the families, not to work as the charity organizations to bring people, and we see all of these people waiting in line and have their dishes or whatever to receive the humanitarian needs. We don't show these images of our people because we respect ourselves and our king. And it's dehumanizing to dehumanize people more with the needs, like the images we see in Gaza and in Africa and in other places where there is catastrophes and so on. So that's why for us it was important to keep our integrity as human beings and our integrity as Palestinians, our integrity as people who help the others one way or the other. And with medical aid, with medicine, with the education, with the scholarships for university students, with the food packages and hygiene packages and so on. It was an ongoing work for the last seven years almost, because of the degradation of the situation on one side and or the other. Even now, those who work with the Palestinian Authority receive like 40% or 50% of their salaries. So everybody is needy, one way or the other. And Israel detained the tax money for the Palestinians, so even they cannot pay their bills at the end of the day. Al-Rawad started with theater and increased its programs. Started in 2 rooms in my parents' house. Now it's 2 buildings. With this building that is 3 floors with the theater space and community space downstairs, the space with the library and educational part, and upstairs there's the music, and multiple space where there is the little scientific club where children come to do practical experimentation and robotics and 3D printing and a lot of other programs and the music and singing and so on. And the other building where there is a guest house with 14 rooms. Each room is named after a Palestinian poet, writer, artist, and so on. A space where we hope to develop the cinema school and production house Korean cinema makers, but we go to and video training and exhibitions and so on. A space where down on under the ground where there is a cave that people hid in 1967 war. When my family's house, which we donated to the centers, because I'm not, or my brothers live anymore in the camp. So they are hopefully a museum that will be established in that space. Was used as a carpentry space in the beginning, but now we finished with the carpentry and hopefully will move into the museum space for the Nakba. And on the roof, there is this kitchen where we cook the meals, package them, and so on. And especially during the month of Ramadan, we were doing around 20,000 meals per month in that month of Ramadan, the fasting months for Muslims. And there hopefully would be a performance space at the roof, and you will see the space we will eat there soon. And it's a view also on the camp and in the wall and so on. We have people like you coming and people hosting, inviting me or others to speak, to conferences or workshops or tour with our shows. So Arwad Theatre and Dance Group have toured since the year 2000 in Sweden, Denmark, France, Belgium, Austria, United States of America, United Kingdom. And these tours are amazing possibilities to allow our young people to see normal life in free countries, but allow people to meet, to see that we share a lot of things as a human being, and these similarities should bring us closer to each other. And see also that we have differences, and differences are the most beautiful gifts that we could have as a human beings, because they are ways to enrich us and not make us afraid from each other and marginalize us. And when you look around you, we talk about these values: justice, freedom, peace, equality, love, that we share as human beings, whether we are Muslim or Christian or Jewish or Buddhist or Hindu or atheist or whatever we are. We have no compromises in these values. These values are not elastic, changing depending on who is the oppressor and who is the oppressed. These are values that are constant. These are values that we can be proud to leave to our children and the generations to come, and they remain an integral part of our humanity and the heritage we want to leave to our children and the generations. So that's why, for me, everybody is important and everybody is a change maker. And if people are waiting for the others to do them, they can wait for eternity, because nothing will happen if we are not part of it. And if we remove ourselves from the change making process and wait for the others to do it, then of course, some people can wait. Some people, if a child, one of my children or your children who have our children come and look us in the face and say, what did you do to make a change? What heritage are you leaving us? Hopefully we will not fade in shame and say, I thought the president will do it or the king will do it. Even God will not help those who do not help themselves. So we do our part, hopefully others will join. But even if they will not join, we will continue. And that's the way we try to do. When money comes, we expand. When money don't, we shrink. But we never fade away from doing what we have to do, even when there is no money. Because again, we want to be proud in front of our children or your children and say we did something, and not wait for miracles to happen, but try to provoke them to happen. And this is a concept. As Palestinians, I guess, despite everything, despite all the suffering that is happening, you probably have seen that people have kept their humanity, their beauty, their spirit of laugh and making jokes and so on, and make good food and make good embroidery and make good impression on people with their welcoming and hospitality. And I'm not saying that to say we are angels and everybody is the devil. We are people like every people with our good and bad, but despite all the bad that happened against us, we still remain mostly integral to our values and our hospitality and our Palestinianity in that sense. And they couldn't remove that from us. They couldn't dehumanize us. In fact, they are dehumanizing themselves, not us. And the world they built, they imprisoned them, not us. Because at the end of the day, you cannot imprison ideas, you cannot imprison values, you cannot imprison morality of people. There is a lot of imprisoned people who are more free than a lot of people who lives in the palace and in the government of people and so.